Welcome to today's episode of the Speak to the Rod podcast with Chuck and Christy. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of Speak to the Rod podcast with Chuck and Christy. We're excited to be back and share a little bit more of our stories. It's going to be a real fun. I'm excited for this episode. We're going to be sharing a little bit of how we got to meet each other and some of those stories. And I'm so grateful that Christy is with me today. Thank you so much for taking the time to share. And so the last few episodes, we talked a little bit of our lives, how we, got an encounter with God, how we got saved, how we met Jesus, and we'll talk about those things in the future as well. But today, I just want to share a little bit how we met each other. Like I said, I think in one of the last few episodes, I mentioned that we're excited because this year is going to be our 20th year wedding anniversary. Are you excited about that?
Yeah.
Has it been easy?
Well.
So it's been an adventure.
It has. It's been an adventure. It's been great. You wouldn't think, if you asked me, I wouldn't believe it's already been 20 years, but it's been a good 20 years. It's been exciting, like you said, an adventure. And I'm just happy to still be here.
Yeah, we're happy. Nowadays, being married for that long is an accomplishment. It's a milestone. We're excited. We're happy. We got married March 15, 2003. And just thinking back about that time in our lives, we met when we were in ministry together. I think in one of the episodes I mentioned that I met the Lord and really have an encounter with the Lord during my time at the discipleship training school. Well, guess what? The director of the discipleship training school was Christy's dad, Robert. So I not only met the Lord there, but I met my wife there. It was an amazing time. We got to minister to the Lord together before we, started talking something more serious about us, right?
Yeah, that's right. You just mentioned how my dad was the director. Going back to a little bit of backstory, I guess if we want to rewind a little bit, how that started. So I mentioned before that I grew up as a missionary kid. My mom and dad were missionaries in Mexico, and we lived in central Mexico. Now my husband, he's from northern Mexico, or the border, and so it was quite a drive. It was several states away from each other. And during those years, I want to say mid 90s to late 90s is when God started to move in my home church, in my hometown, and we experienced what you could call a revival. God was moving really incredibly. I sometimes say that God saved me again through that time. It was in my teenage years.
By the way, we're going to interview your dad in one of the next episodes, and he's going to be sharing a lot about that revival.
So I'll let him tell all the details. I won't go too into depth with that. I just wanted to mention it before because right during that time, I think you mentioned there was a youth conference the summer that you got saved. Yes. Or rededicated your life to Christ. Well, we had been going to some of those conferences because this was a move of God in, I guess you could say, the whole country. There was different parts of Mexico that were experiencing this wave, if you want to call it, of renewal, where people would rededicate their lives to Christ, where people would just come to Christ once again and give their lives if they hadn't before, or many for the very first time. And so during those years, like I said, I rededicated my life to Christ. And I think maybe 2 years later, my dad came home and said, okay, we're getting ready to move. We're leaving the town that you grew up in for the last 18 years of your life. And we are going to go to the border. And that for me was, whoa, as a teenager, you're thinking, okay, up and get out of here, just suddenly with no, warning really. But because of the reason we were going, he then explained that he was going to go start a school, I guess, a training to help young people that wanted to dedicate their lives to Christ in service to Him, become, I don't know, some sort of ministers, I guess. And it was going to be a training, a 3-month thing. And so that was just exciting to me. I thought, okay, well, my next chapter now begins. And I remember we packed up, we had a truck, we had different stuff we sold. I remember selling my bicycle, my rollerblades, I mean, all kinds of stuff that we had to get rid of to be able to be light enough to move. And we moved right after that summer that you rededicated your life. Like you said, I was actually at that conference. We traveled to that conference in August, I think they were in June. And then we moved that August. So it was a whirlwind, but it was so good.
We miss each other for a few weeks then. You maybe were there, like I said in the other episode, it was a big crowd of people. But the Lord really was planning to cross our paths. Not long after that is when we started. She mentioned that they started a discipleship training school, and then a year later, I became a part of the discipleship training school. And after that happened, my life was completely changed. The Holy Spirit completely transformed me, renewed me. And Christy was one of the staff members during my discipleship training school. So she was one of we call it supervisors. The one that she was in charge of some of the girls. So in that time, I'm still considering myself pretty shy. But in that time, I was even shyer. I will say that. And so I would not really cross a lot of words with the girls from there. And nevertheless, with the supervisors, so we really didn't have a lot, even though we were in the same classroom and all that. We really didn't. I don't think we even talked during those 3 months.
I don't think we ever had one conversation. I mean, I'm kind of embarrassed to say it, but I don't think I even knew your first and last name. I mean, I knew your face.
That hurts, by the way.
I knew your face, but like you said, there was so much going on. Let me go into a little bit of what the discipleship training looked like. I mean, we say 3 months, but it was intense, guys. I mean, it was get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. See, all the girls lived in one house. All the boys lived in another house. We would all get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to do physical exercise. And then we would go back home, we would shower, get ready for the day. We would go and have breakfast together at the building where the discipleship class school was. We would have breakfast, clean up, and then the first class started, I believe, at 9 o'clock in the morning.
That's correct.
9 o'clock in the morning, we're starting class, and it went on till 2 o'clock, which is when we would have lunch. And after lunch, we had what we called recreational work, not recreational, more like work, where we would do different areas. We would help clean the church. We would help clean parking lots. We would do, I don't know, all kinds of stuff just to keep people busy, I guess. And after that, we would come back to church and have another meeting, I believe at 7. And that meeting would sometimes go on till 8 or 9, after which we would have dinner and go home. And lights out at 10 o'clock at night.
And by the way, this was like a spiritual boot camp. We had to read, if I remember correctly, like 13 chapters of the Bible a day. It was very intense. So you really, and plus, one of the rules was there was not allowed any kind of, romance. So it was really...
No dating allowed for those 3 months.
But it was okay because you were there for 3 months. You were there really to seek the Lord with everything. Now, just think about this. When you go to church or you go to a youth a retreat or a camp, you get there 3 days, 4 days, and then all your attention is on that, and the Lord really speaks to you. Just think about that. But for 3 months. So all our attention was in the Lord. And really, to be honest with you, I was not there, for any other reason than seeking God. And so after my school, I would say that my course was completed. I remember calling my dad and I said, Dad, I want to stay longer. I feel that God is calling me into ministry. I remember I told him, I want to become a missionary. And he is like, okay. And my dad was not a Christian at the time, but he said, I'll support you. My mom was really excited. She's been praying for me to get saved, that I'm serving the Lord. So all these things are happening. So the first, I think we were together for about 2 years. And I think, we became a little bit better friends. I think before I graduated, or after I graduated, we were part of the same ministry, traveling ministry. Remember, we were traveling all over northern Mexico, some places in the U.S. And it was just a bunch of, I think it was like 20 young people. All of us were single and just, ministering. So I started the ministry really intense. I was, leader of the guys. Christy was the leader of the girls. And just think about having 20 people traveling together. There was a lot of turmoil, a lot of changes, a lot of problems, a lot of drama. But during that time, still, we were like, probably it's the time that we got a little closer, became friends, a little bit working together. Not too much, I would say not too much. After that ministry time was done or was over, I got invited to work as part of the staff at the school again. It's not like a year later, I would say. And you were also invited to be back at the school. So that's when we really started becoming really good friends. You will remember that.
Yeah, we were friends more than anything, especially at the beginning. Like I said, during his first 3 months, his course, I didn't really even know his name. And now you understand more. The intensity of that program was you really didn't have a whole lot of time to flirt or get to know anybody, even though, I mean, besides the fact that it wasn't allowed. But after that, during those months that we started traveling together with that team, I remember we had a big van and we would go, like you said, to different cities, and we would have some youth camps, or we would go out on the streets and just evangelize, and just very hands-on stuff. Like he said, there was a lot of drama because you have, I don't know, I think it was more like 15 young people together living in the same houses and traveling in the same 15-passenger van for many, many hours. And it could be really intense. At some points, I mean, I can say that there was drama even between us.
Yeah.
We weren't very, I can say it, I'm sorry if I'm hurtful, but I didn't really like him very much.
Yeah.
He was too intense.
I was very intense, to be honest. I mean, I'm still, pretty black and white guy, but back then, I was a new Christian, so everything had to be made in a certain way. I was really like, there was no compromise in anything. So, it's okay to be like that when you're talking about, a lot of principles, but when you're talking about personal relationships, that was creating a problem, because then I was getting really isolated because of that. But anyways, I think, through time, the Lord started dealing with me, started dealing with each one of us. And, we have total different personalities. The ones that if you know us personally, I'm very social. I like to talk to people. I like to do a lot of things. And she's really more quiet. She's more introvert and stuff like that. But then at one point we realized, and I think it was our first official mission trip. We were part of a team that went to France. So this is right before 9/11. We went to France, and we started, liking each other more. We started talking a little bit more about, what our future, or the future, I would say, personal future looked like. And I remember, and I'm not giving this as an advice. I mean, not everybody is different, but when you're talking about marriage, one of the things that I talk to young people is like, first of all, you need to know what you want to do in life before you can start bringing somebody else into your life. So if you don't know what to do with your life, it's really hard and it's really dangerous to bring somebody into your life when you don't have a clue. And I think that's one of the things. I mean, it's not that I have everything figured out, but at least I knew that I have a call of God and I have a purpose and I wanted to travel, those kind of things. And I remember, I think we were in North France, and I started asking you those kind of questions. Like, it was funny.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, obviously, I already knew that I liked him, and I already knew he liked me. We had those flirtful looks at each other, and our friends. I mean, I still lived at the girls' house, and you talk amongst girls, and you start saying, "Hey, you see how he looked at you? Or did you see this and that?" And they started to create, at first a curiosity, because, like I said, we were friends. Right after when we came back, he mentioned we came back to work on the staff at the school, and we had the same day off, for example. And well, there wasn't much to do when you have one day off a week. I mean, every other day, every other hour of your life was absorbed with something. So on our day off, it was just the two of us. And so I'd call him up and say, "Hey, why don't we, I already did my laundry. I don't have a whole lot of other things to do with my time. Why don't we, I don't know, catch a movie?" Or I think we went bowling one time, which I won.
Okay, I'm not going to talk about that. That's the only time that I went bowling and I lost terribly. So never again.
Yeah, he did lose. But it was a lot of fun. And I mean, we were just becoming really good friends. And at this point, I mean, it started to catch my eye. He would have certain comments. And I mean, like I said, he's pretty black and white and very straightforward. He started asking those questions. So, where do you see yourself in, I don't know, say 5 years? And I'm not that kind of planful person. I'm very, it is what it is, and I'm doing this now. But he's more of a structured. And so when he started asking those questions, it kind of caught me off guard. But I told him what I'd always known. I said, okay, from the point of I was really young, I think I shared this before, I've wanted to become a missionary. I've wanted to, spread the gospel to other people that don't know it. And I don't see myself doing anything else but serving God. And in those conversations, we would start to compare notes, I think, on our own sides and say, hey, you know what? He's kind of going in the same direction, or she's kind of going in the same direction that I'm thinking of going. And I think that really helped way in the beginning for us to become more of a, I guess, team.
Yep.
Would you call it a team that we are today?
And also, we were friends before we got into something else. And I think that's one of the keys that still, 20 years later into marriage, we are each other best friends. And
Yes.
that's also something that we learn and that we encourage people, especially young people. You want to get into a relationship with somebody that you don't know at all. It's complicated. It can be complicated. You need to at least have some idea. First of all, what do you want to do? And, get to know the person that you're, interest a little bit more. Do we share your common interest? I think that's one of the keys.
Yeah, common interest. Obviously, we don't think the same. And obviously, I mean, I like things that you don't like at all. And you like things that I don't like sports. I'm sorry, you sports fans out there. He loves every sport out there. And he knows the score of just about every sport.
Even tennis.
Even tennis. I mean, and he knows how to keep track of all these sports. And I don't like the sound of sports on TV. It just, I don't know. It does something to the back of my mind. I do not like it. But that's not really an issue. I mean, we've learned to live with that kind of dislikes in each other. Now, if I did not like, say, traveling, then I would be in a pickle because that's basically what we do. And if I was like a homebody, then it would be really hard for us to be a team.
Just last year, we were in 7 different countries. So just think about it. And young people, that you're listening, you're watching us, that's something that we can give you this advice. I remember I have a pastor friend of mine said, I give you this advice for free. I'm going to give you this advice for free. Young guys, young girls, it's okay to like each other and all those kind of things. But if you're really talking about getting something, getting serious about something, think about those things. We share some common interests because, marriage is not easy, and I'm not going to go into all that. I'm not doom and gloom about marriage. Obviously that's part of the journey. There's ups and downs. But what I'm saying, when you have agreements and common likes and stuff like that really helps, especially when you're talking about, what are you going to be doing the rest of your life. So you're somebody that don't want to leave home at all, and then you marry this guy or this girl that is a world traveler like we are. Well, can get really frustrating. So I think and I'm gonna say this. I know there's a lot of controversy about dating and stuff like that. I mean, like I said, this is just our story,
Our
experience. But I will say this: in our experience, we didn't really date it for that long because we were really good friends. We started knowing each other. So even before I proposed to her for marriage or something else, we knew that we were pretty much in the same page talking about, our ministry or our lives together.
Life goals, even.
Life goals, I will say that. Actually, for some of our premarital classes, we have a pastor asking us, this is before we even get married, we have a notebook and we started writing some goals and stuff that we want to accomplish as a couple. And we still have that notebook somewhere. I mean, it's probably hidden somewhere in the house, but we still have to, because we have to go back in time, and just check those things. We were like having I don't say an agreement on how much or how many kids we want, stuff like that. I know it's really hard to plan out all that ahead of time, but I'm just giving an idea how it was with us. And we started talking to each other. We started sharing some of those things, and eventually, it became something that it was not only an attraction, but also it was like, we can complement each other.
Yes, we do. I think we do complement each other. We have grown, or I have grown a lot, just in the time that we've been together in other areas that I know that if I wasn't with you, I wouldn't have grown in those areas in my life, because the Bible even talks about that. Two are better than one. And when one is limping, the other one will help him get up. And that is true in our relationship time and time again. I mean, when I'm down, sometimes you know exactly what to say. And when you're down, I sometimes make it worse. But
That is true.
but that's how we get along. And again, I guess I can't say it enough. We were friends first.
Yeah.
When you have a friend, see, there's something about friendships before attraction. When you have a friend, there's really nothing that friend can do to surprise you, because you know that how that friend is already. Let's say we had been traveling together in the same 15-passenger van for several months. So I kind of knew what he looked like, after not sleeping for 10 hours.
Well, not eating.
Exactly, or not eating, or after working outdoors. And those little details that maybe don't seem big, but a lot of times when you start dating somebody just right off the bat because you think that person's attractive, you don't get to see those things till after. And so I was fortunate to get those, images out of the way at the beginning, before there was even a physical attraction or anything else, because we were just really good friends.
Well, let me catch up with our story, because we know we can share a lot about things about this, and we might have an episode in the future talking about some of these principles. But then the hard part came when I had to talk to your dad, because he was. If I was saying that I was black and white, he was even more radical than me. So a lot of people were pretty afraid of him, because especially when you're talking about his daughter, it was another thing. So basically, I just talked to him about her, and he said to wait a year. So we couldn't date for a whole year, working in the same school, seeing each other every day. That was hard.
Yeah, it definitely was. I think it was harder to have to see him every day and know that, we couldn't get together and go and go on a date or something after that, because we were working in the same place, but there was that, wait time. Just stay as friends. Don't call it anything else yet.
And when I look back at that time, I appreciate that. At the moment, you're like, oh man, this is going to take, I can recall Genesis when, Jacob is like, oh, he worked so hard for his wife, and then he ended up getting the older girl, and then he works again, and it says, they seem like days to him, and in reality, when you're really like, oh man, but when you are there, it's hard, and it was, a year now that I look back, we've been together for 20 years. It doesn't look like much, but back then it was like, oh, it was so hard. But really, I appreciate that, because our friendship got deeper. Because there's something special about spending time with someone and just share about your life, share about your goals and your dreams that the Lord has given you. So after that year, finally, I was really radical. I counted 365 days, came to her dad with a ring on my pocket, and I said, I want to marry your daughter. And this is very funny, but he didn't just look at me and walk away. So he might be listening to this podcast and he might be not liking it, but I had to say it. But you know what? I was already traveling with him. I was already in ministry working with him. So I learned, and I still learn so much from him. But back then it was a little bit for different drama. So I think it was 6 months later we got married.
Yeah. After you proposed, it was 6 months, and we had a wedding, and then we moved. And we never came back.
Yes, all we had was two pieces of luggage each, and that's how we went to serve in another church in Central South Mexico. We'll talk about that in another episode. How we started, a walk of faith. But all I can say, because we're gonna be during this podcast, during this episode, when this episode is gonna be during, I would say this during our 20th anniversary during this season. So it's exciting to go back and look back and think and just appreciate and being grateful with each other.
Yes.
I love you, by the way. and being grateful with God because He's been so faithful with us.
Yes, he has.
And you wanna add something? I just wanna say this. I wanna say our lives together. I mean, and I know I just not only consider her my friend, my wife, she's the mother of my children, but also we are traveler companions. We travel the world together and it's been an adventure. So for me, and I want to say this to everybody listening today, for me, not only marriage, but walking with God is an adventure.
It is.
It is an adventure to serve the Lord. A lot of people are like, are you a minister? And, we had so many ideas of ministry and marriage, maybe because bad examples, whatever. I just want to tell you our story. Our story has been an adventure. That doesn't mean that we didn't have hard times. There's been hard times in our marriage. There's been times when we didn't, maybe laugh like we usually do. But we have something that we committed each other. And I remember right before I married her, I got one friend of mine told me, when I shared with him that I really like Christy and all that, he said something that I think changed a lot of my perspective. He said, do you see yourself growing old with her? Because this is a commitment for your entire life. This is not only a commitment when you're, young and free, but this is a commitment to go all the way to the end. When you pronounce those marriage vows, you said, till death set us apart. And that's the commitment we made to each other. And, marriage is under a lot of attack in our society. Family is under a lot of attack in our society. But we want to set an example that it's possible to stay together, press on together, pray together. There's not a lot of secrets. There's just, a lot of stories that we can share about. But, we are grateful. I think it's by the grace of God.
Yes.
First of all, I will say this. You cannot give what you don't have. So maybe you are struggling in your life right now. Maybe you're struggling in the relationship right now in your life. I want to say this. I want to say that, you don't have that much love for somebody else. You can always come to God because the Bible says that God is love. Just come to Him. He will fill you with love. He will fill you with peace. He will fill you with forgiveness. And when you got that and you receive that, you can give it to somebody else. Right. So thank you so much for tuning today for this week's episode of Speak to the Rod podcast with Chuck and Christy. See you next time.